Hey, welcome on in, guys. Tobin here with you, and thanks for checking out the channel. I hope you're doing well there. If you guys could subscribe, that'd be great. Appreciate you stopping by the channel, and if you guys could also subscribe to my radio station's YouTube page, 104.3 WQAM. Myself, Leroy Horde, we do a radio show every weekday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., and you guys can go over there right now, my Heat fans. We interviewed the great, legendary Goran Dragić this week. We talked to Goran. He gave us 20 minutes of his time. I cannot begin to thank Goran enough for how awesome he is. Was like, we've been talking Eurobasket. I've you guys know on this channel I've been doing a lot of Eurobasket, which I haven't. I've been super busy since the fights last week. But we're gonna have a full coverage this weekend of the round of 16. Okay, we got Sweden, we got Serbia, we got Italy, all in the round of 16. It starts, I think, at 5 o'clock on Saturday. So we will be going wall to wall with that, covering Pelle Larsson. Pelle Larsson has been really good. I mean, he has been. Sweden has come up short, but he is. I mean, he had a stint there in the fourth quarter. He hits a three, and just gets us just a nuts bucket on Jonas Valanciunas. Really, really impressive. I would say Nico's tapered off a little bit. They've been some weird games. It kind of felt like he got lost in the sauce a little bit with the Turkey game. He blew a bunny late. That was frustrating. But he's gotten off to like some really hot starts, and then it just kind of has felt like it got bogged down a little bit with but you know, Goran, we had him on, and he was like, we asked him, hey, who do you think is going to win this thing? And he's like, probably Serbia. They're a monster. He was even like, Slovenia, we don't want that smoke. Like, he's like, you saw that, dude. We lost by 40. But he mentioned Turkey, who has Şengün. They have former Miami Hurricane, Shane Larkin. Both had huge games, and they looked tough. Turkey looks like they play together. They look tough. Shane Larkin plays in the Turkish league over there. And so that looks like it's going to be a pretty big challenge. I think that's actually who Sweden has first, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's who they have. Let me double check that for y'all here. But I think that's who is coming up on that one. And yeah, hold on. FIBA Sunday, Saturday. Yes, Turkey, Sweden at 5 o'clock. Serbia, Finland will be at 2:45 that day, and then Sunday, Italy and Slovenia at 11:30. So you get to see Fontecchio. That's a fun matchup. So we'll have full coverage of that this weekend. We'll keep an eye on that stuff. But man, I couldn't thank Goran enough. That was awesome. So I recommend you guys going and checking that interview out. He had some really goosey stuff about Kasparas Giacochonis and Nico. He just like, I expect big things from Nico this year, like out of the gate. We weren't even like, we were kind of just hopping. He's like, I expect big things out of Nico. I was like, oh, I was pretty excited to hear that, dude. I'm not gonna lie, like that to me, whoo, that got me. That got the gooses flowing. I'm not that got the goosies flowing. I'm not gonna lie. And he's just an awesome, I mean, all around awesome dude. I don't want to spoil the whole interview, but I do want to talk about one thing from it. But on the tail end of it, dude is like, you know, doing great charity work in Africa this summer. Just a great-hearted individual. I know everybody wants to say that the guy should be in the organization. One of the points that he made with Kasparas is that he's here to help. He's looking forward to working with him, which sounds like he's going to be around, but I didn't openly. Yeah, you know, I didn't want to put Goran in a bad spot because I don't know what the relationship. I know the relationship with the organization is good, but I feel like it's kind of a tough spot to put him in and be like, do you want a job? Like, I think it's kind of a no-win question. So, but I think he let it be known that he absolutely is willing to help and coach. So I don't know. Anyway, but Goran did make this one point that I wanted to discuss because I asked him about Tyler and Bam and the idea that those guys we're going to not have to deal with all the Jimmy Butler drama this year. And it was interesting. One of my Twitchers who loves to insult me during the radio show, we were talking about the Tyreek Hill Tua thing and how they're very kumbaya right now. And he actually made a decent point where he goes, well, this kind of sounds like when Jimmy Butler's playing dominoes with everybody in the Bahamas. And then, you just never know when it can turn on a dime, which is fair. But now knowing that it's never going to be a thing, maybe I do think maybe those guys thought, oh, we were lulled into a situation of comfort with the Jimmy Butler thing, and then maybe that it flared up was a bit of a surprise, even though maybe it shouldn't have. I think that everybody looks back on it, and I don't want to do this. I do not want to keep dissecting this, although I did see that our old friend Bernie Lee was back in the news today because he's no longer Ben Simmons' agent. He's like, I already conquered my quest. I got Jimmy out of there, got him an extension. Ben Simmons rehabilitation project. He's putting a pin in that one. That one is that one's done. But I don't want to rehash this, but I do think if we just talk about it from their perspective of Bam Adebayo and Tyler Herro, I was very hard on them as the season ended because I was like, hey, all you guys talked about when this was done was clarity this, clarity that. It was over. And I thought it was an interesting description because I do think that we all look back on it and we're like, duh, how could you not think that Jimmy Butler was going to make a stink? But I say this as somebody, who has covered those guys for a lot of years, covered Jimmy Butler. I think we all were in the thought of, he's going to handle this like a pro. He's older now, but you just, in the level of making a stink, you want to talk about, the GOAT of making a stink. That's what he is. You thought it was James Harden, but it's not. It's Jimmy Butler. And I do, maybe, and Spoke keeps referencing all the stuff that they went through. And I'm going to play this here for you in a second, but Goran even mentioned the Spo thing as well, because he was like, I think he's going to be even in a better place. And I do wonder what tangible thing that's going to mean for the team. It may mean nothing. And I think when I discuss this, I feel like everyone's reaction is going to be like, boo-hoo, who cares? Don't buy it. Go not be a play-in team. I think that's what the reaction is going to be. But Goran, this was his thoughts, and you try not being charmed by that face.
It was an interesting year because, Jimmy left, Bam and Tyler kind of go into this role where, now they're the dudes. Do you think that, with all that stuff behind, do you think that they can, almost be a little bit more clear this year as far as not having to navigate all that stuff and just kind of have a normal year that could equate to them? Because we know how talented Bam and Tyler are. But is there an ability maybe to go even better for them now that they don't have to handle the headache of the drama of that?
Yeah, I really believe that they can do it because it's really tough to play when you have drama around yourself. The situation that happened last year with Jimmy, it didn't help nobody. It didn't help Jimmy. It didn't help the team. So it was a mess up situation. And when you're a player and you see your teammates going through or the team, it affects you how you play, how you prepare as a team. And I definitely believe that this year we're gonna have more calmness. Spo gonna be more calm. Coach is gonna be more calm. They're gonna, have time to prepare team. And when you calm, you perform better. Your confidence grows. Everything is much easier. You sleep better. You eat more. It's it's all those stuff. And I really believe that this year, I like the additions that the team they bring, and we'll see. It's gonna be a fun year.
There you go. From the legend himself, the dragon, Goran Dragic. And yeah, I do think that, look, I get it. Goran has an affinity for the Heat, everybody. I understand. We all do. It was actually funny because we talked about this we were talking about Slovenia. It's a funny thing because we were talking about the Slovenian national team, and he was like, one of the things that frustrates me this year with Slovenia is they brought up these young guys to kind of make some noise, and they don't play them, which is pretty. This is why I'm very impressed by what somebody like Nico is doing, because Nico has been doing things for Serbia for a few years, and he's very young. And it's not a very common thing to see a bunch of young guys, to have a guy as young as him be the guy, because there is a hierarchy that goes on these international teams. But I told Goran, I said, hey, you sound like a Heat fan. And so we that's how we kind of jumped into that. But Bam and Tyler talked about clarity, and I do wonder, dissecting and taking a step back, of how much of this was they really did think, all right, we're gonna have this one last ride together, we're gonna have this 1 year to ride it out, and then it just flipped on a dime, and then you had to have him gone, and then you have new guys on the team, and you're trying to welcome them in, and you're trying to be the good teammate, and oh, by the way, you're also trying to bring in this rookie center who's doing great and catching lobs, but he's learning, and then we got to see how this all fits together. And so it is a little bit, as the kids say, it's a little bit of hopium. It's a little hope trafficky. I get it. But I will say, it goes down smoother with a great Slovenian accent. You cannot deny that. I do wonder, though, for especially Bam and for Tyler, there's a lot of us asking about X factors and this and that and where things are going to go. This is a very interesting team because it feels like a team that has opportunity. It also feels like a team that's got a lot of pivot points. It feels like a team that, I mean, really outside of Bam and Kalel, there's not a lot of guys that you're like, oh, these guys are going to be there for the next 3-4 years. Everybody else, even Tyler, is kind of on the table because we don't know what's going to happen with Tyler's extension. And we don't know how it's going to go once October passes if they don't sign to extension. How he handles that. I think he's going to handle it like a pro because, yeah, quite frankly, the guy's handled everything like a pro his entire career, whether it be trade rumors. There's been, I guess, open quotes about like, hey, I wasn't happy being a sixth man. But yeah, he's handled, I mean, he's been through. The one thing I'll say about Tyler, even though, he's 25 turning 26 this year, I do kind of buy. I don't think he's going to pull a Jimmy. I do kind of buy that he'll, like Pat Riley said, be cool. That if things are going to be punted until the summer, that it'll be okay. So then it just comes down to, all right, well, what is he like taking the reins? Because I will say, we talked about this a little bit earlier in the summer about Tyler becoming more of a step into that leader spot and rallying guys, and him having Kalel by his side this summer. But he's gonna be in another position of like, hey, this is your team too. Like, obviously Bam's the captain. Even though Bam is, Bam's going to year 9. This was not a thing that he was thrilled to be thrust into. Tyler, I think, almost can come into it a little bit more organically than even Bam did. As you're getting into like these prime years, you were an all-star last year. He already seems like he's got that ability to bring other players into the fold. So I am excited to see what that is. What these next levels and jumps are as players can be. You kind of have already done the stuff with both of them. I think that Tyler having more support in the backcourt offensively is going to help. A more comfortable Andrew Wiggins is going to help. And then just the young guys kind of stepping up. I think that the support system is just going to be better for those guys than it was last year. And then you got to take advantage of what seems like a wounded East right now. Will there be some pivot move at some point? I want to get into that because I've been promising to give my bold takes, and I do have some things that I think are going to happen this year, but that's not for this video. I just like the idea that if you're gonna if no one believes in Bam and Tyler, Goran Dragić believes in Bam and Tyler, and that's good enough for me.